Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
That's good. I am Nsio. Nsio of the Hermit Mystics. I go by that name in DeviantArt. And I will tell you a little about myself first before I start with the actual panel session. I come from Finland and I work as an architect. And so art is just a hobby for me. And I'm self-studied. Although I have studied architecture, I really haven't got any real education about art. So everything I'm going to tell you here is something that I have come to find on my own. I wonder, how long have you been drawing, or do you draw at all? Have you been drawing around? How many of you have just started, hands up, for the drawing? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. How many of you have been drawing around 1 year or so? All right. 5 years, more than 5 years. Okay, so there are so. Okay, all right. Yeah. I've been drawing around 12 years by now, but it took me 6 years before I really understood that I wasn't good at all at drawing. My friend had the guts to tell me that I suck at drawing, basically. So I realized that I need to change the way I think before I can really improve. So this is what I'm going to tell you here in this session, which is why the topic is artistic mind, psychological take on making art. Now, I don't have any education on psychology myself, so everything I'm going to tell you here is something that is based on my own observations and findings and research on my own mind. So everything I think I will just apply on general public, so that I feel that people think in this way, so I need to change it in other ways so that they will understand things in the right way. Okay. So as I go on, please don't disturb me with questions, because I will think we'll have some time at the end of this session so that you can ask questions if you have any. First, I will tell you how the mind works, how I think the mind works. Then I will tell you why is it so hard to understand this world we live in. Because of how our mind works. And then I will tell you how artists, or at least I do, think these things, and I will show you some example how it actually works. At some point I may feel a bit rude for you, because the things that I'm going to tell you probably isn't something that you want to hear. And that's just how our mind works. We usually don't want to hear something that feels hostile, or it hurts our feelings, like something like this. So my goal isn't to insult any of you, just to make sure. So just keep your mind open and try to, if you ever feel a little angry or annoyed, you need to analyze yourself and what makes you angry. So that's the first step for understanding how your own mind works. Yeah. So artists are really different than normal people, because they just know and understand so much about this world we live in, and they know how to convey this message to the audience. And I think it's because they just know how our mind works. And I think our brain, it wants to have it easy because there is so much visual information going through your eyes. So it doesn't need all that information at all. So it just discards a lot of information because you can manage without that very well. But that's a problem for an artist because they have to see what is going on in this world we live in. So, it's really easy to fool the brain, which is why I have this example here. Now, there is this girl with a swimsuit there, but if you look on this side, which is partially covered, it looks like it's naked, even though you know she has the swimsuit. That's just because your brain cannot see the swimsuit. It cannot construct it in your mind. But you do know how human body looks. So you see this kind of false image in your mind. This is called a modal completion, in which the brain constructs, builds in everything that it cannot see to make sense of the drawing or the image, whatever it is. So note that we know this. Nothing is as it seems at the first glance. As you can see here, it's an image of these peanuts characters on the crossroads. But in order for it to look right for the driver, you actually need to paint it wrong on the road. And that's because how the perspective works. So you actually need to do something wrong to make it look right from certain viewing angle. So these kind of optical illusions are a perfect way for you to understand how you perceive the world, because you can actually check the truth yourself. As seen on there, the black and white pattern, it appears that the vertical stripes, vertical lines aren't straight, that they are curved a little. But in fact, they all are straight. So this is why I recommend that you take a look at some optical illusions so that you can actually try out to see yourself, how you actually perceive. And not that we know about how we see, it comes to how we think. And this is why we have this next slide, which is about our mentality of either or. So we like to think in this way that something is either right or it's wrong, or true or false, good, bad. This is basically how our mind works. And I think our society actually encourages us to think in this way. For example, our language, it has these words, but the problem is that in art, there is no such things as right and wrong. Artists aren't bound to this kind of limited concepts. Something can be right and wrong at the same time, but our mind doesn't really like that kind of contradictions. It doesn't like being confused. That's because we are a little narrow-minded. We just like to see things in a certain way, probably in a way that someone told us to do. Someone told us that, our parents, for example, told us that something is right and something is wrong. So we just go with that and believe it that blindly. But we can't really do it that way. Focus there, guys. So that's why it's so difficult for me to actually explain these things, because I need to use these words in our language for you so that you can understand. But some information is always lost in that translation. For example, if I tell you that you need to draw cubes, practice drawing cubes, it doesn't mean that you need to draw only cubes mindlessly 24/7. While at the same time it actually does. But it's just, you need to, it just means that I'm telling you that you need to focus on cubes, but I'm not telling you that you should draw nothing else. And then it comes to this kind of interpretation, so how you understand the things that you are told or see. And when I was making this slide, I was thinking, how could someone interpret this in a horribly wrong way? So the first thing that came to my mind was this. This is racist. Just because I have listed word black along with negative words. Some people may want to see these kind of messages everywhere, even if that's not really the case. So if any of you is thinking like this, that this is racist because I just listed the black word black on with negative words, you're getting it horribly wrong, this whole idea. In fact, you are just the person that you shouldn't be, because you need to be able to get rid of this kind of either or thinking or seeing something that just happens to suit your desires. If you have this kind of mind, it's impossible to use critic properly. You can't take constructive critic, which is why we come to this, the first barrier, which is facing the truth. So, with your mind, you can shape your own reality, both in good and bad. So, if you are ignorant, and you don't know anything about anything at all, and you believe that you are just, okay, I'm really good at drawing already, and I should be the best in DeviantArt, why I'm not so popular there. And well, you are just denying the truth. You probably see that you are really bad, but you just want to be that good artist so bad that you are blind to your own failure. And then we have this, the other side, which is being pessimistic or anxious about yourself, that whatever you do and whatever people say about you, they are just attacks on you personally. So you don't believe in improvements and you're just very frustrated about everything. So these are just about this either or way of thinking, that either you already know everything or you don't know and you won't be able to know anything because you just suck. But the world isn't black and white in this manner. You need to be able to get rid of this kind of thinking. Because if you have open mind, you will be able to kind of, if you feel even a little more frustrated about something, you need to be able to give up. You need to allow yourself to give up at some point, a little, so that the frustration will actually pass through you, and you will feel relieved, because you can allow yourself to kind of fail a little, and that will open your mind for more information, actually. So you need to experience the world as you see it, not the way you think it is. And you can actually work on your way of thinking consciously, actively, if you want to. So if you were a little feeling that you were this kind of ignorant person or pessimistic, you can actually change it if you just want to. You just need to be very honest with yourself. Search your own feelings so that you will be able to change your own mind. But being a little arrogant or pessimistic isn't bad by default, because I believe that artists has to be able to feel these both states so that they can improve on their own. And they need to change those feelings or states of minds into positive drive, which drives them forward and becoming better at art. What comes to me, I try to change everything in a positive way. So when I was practicing, rather than getting frustrated, I wanted to find concepts that could help me to become better at art. So I didn't delve into frustration. I didn't give up the frustration. I just got more encouragement from there. So, okay, I failed. Now I want to find why I did fail. I find the answers, how to fix that. So if you think in this kind of positive way, it makes your life much easier. It's much easier to learn drawing. However, if you are too positive, it will just become exactly what you don't want to be on the left side from your point of view. Don't become arrogant or ignorant person. You want to be open for everything. So, now that we notice how our mind works, I will tell you that there are no rules, while at the same time there are a lot of rules. But the problem is that we usually like to think that there is a rule, that something has to be done in a certain way, and that will restrict a lot. Because, for example, if you tell yourself that you need to learn anatomy first, you will just stagnate. You won't be able to improve because anatomy is, well, you do need anatomy for a lot, but it's not the most important thing in art. So if you actually skip anatomy and start with things like proportions and symmetry, basic shapes, you can actually start drawing much earlier. And when you are much more experienced, your anatomy may actually come to you very easily because you already understand how human body works. That's why I skipped anatomy almost completely when I started drawing, seriously. A lot of people tell me that I'm very good at anatomy, but I haven't really practiced anatomy much at all. It has come as a byproduct of my other studies. And this is why I have, in DeviantArt, I have made a lot of tutorials, and one I want to mention here is Nsio explains a learning order to human picture drawing. And in that tutorial, I will just tell you about what kind of order I find is the most beneficial for you to learn human figure drawing. And it starts from the basic shapes and then goes on to the basic human proportions and things like that. And then it tells about more advanced stuff like a little about anatomy, body language, and things like that. And finally, about more about applications such as how to draw things consistently so that every drawing you draw will will become the same every time you draw it, and all kind of quality things, that kind of stuff. I really recommend taking a look at it at my DeviantArt page. So as I told you, there is no rule for you that says that you always need to finish your drawings, or your drawings has to be perfect every time. There is no such rule. So you need to be able to give up. If you ever feel cornered or frustrated, you need to be able to give up so that your mind will release all the stress. And then you can try again. So if you can't do something, don't worry, you can just move on and then try it again later. And if you don't understand something right on the spot, don't worry, just move on, because that thing might be something that you won't be even able to understand at your current level of skill. And if you kind of start with the basic shapes and things like that, you will build up your experience and knowledge, which will help you to build up the foundation for better art. So that way, for example, things like anatomy will come much more easier and faster for you. It will be much more efficient practice that way. So, as I told you earlier, that our mind doesn't like confusion or contradictions. And I think that's one of the main reasons people have so hard time understanding conceptual things, such as how to learn things in the right way. So I have come to notice this kind of contradicting truths. For example, I think perspective is actually really simple, but the way it is taught at the school, it's not really very intuitive, and we are forced to think in this classical perspective, 1, 2, and 3 point of perspective. And it's not very natural for us, but because we are forced to think it like that from the very beginning, we are kind of, we don't know if there is any other ways to go about it. And so for that reason, I have this panorama view here, which I found from Google. And as you can see, the road is curved, but in fact, it is straight. And these both statements are true in this particular case. In order for this image to work, you have to kind of move your eyes so that you can see the whole road. But when you place it on a flat canvas, on two-dimensional surface, this effect has to happen so that it will look right. And it doesn't look really right here because you normally can't see this much on first glance. And when you look, your brain automatically processes the image so that you will see a perfectly everything. So there is actually 3 vanishing points there. In the middle is the one right in front of you, and on the right from you, there is one on the left and one on the right. So when you turn around, you will see these vanishing points there. And this perspective doesn't break any rules of classical perspective. It's just this, the guidelines are curved because this has to happen. And that's why classical perspective is so useful tool, because it has no curved guidelines. Everything is straight. And that's the point of the whole system. It makes it easier to construct perspective. And as long as you stay within the limitations, it will look fine, good enough. So then we come to misconceptions and beliefs. So we tend to misunderstand things a lot, and we follow our beliefs because we believe what we are told is true. So when, for example, if I told you how perspective works, you probably wouldn't really understand everything that I say, and then you think that you got it because it was me telling you, so I must be telling you the truth, which I am. But there is always some information. Some information is always lost. It is. So you can't really believe everything I say here. You need to process that in your mind and see why I am telling you these things. Why is it that the road is straight and curved at the same time? You need to kind of try to understand why I'm telling you this. So I think this is why most artists don't really bother telling you how they get the drawing done, because it's pretty much impossible to tell everything. Learning art isn't a linear line. You don't start from point A and end the practice on point B. No, it's not like that. It's more like a loop, and you just jump into it somewhere, and you will go around until you actually understand, okay, oh, I'm here on this loop. And then you start practicing everything on the loop, and you never really finish it up. You just keep improving. And yeah, so it's a little funny because I think it's the most important thing is that you need to learn the concepts first before you actually draw. But you can't learn the concepts before you start drawing. So it's kind of a paradox. You can't really learn one or the other. You need to do them both at the same time. And you need to start somewhere, and it's usually the best to start from the very basics, because then you can build up the foundation and find your position in this loop. So you can't really teach others unless you really understand, unless you have taught yourself. So if you are, like in this example, this little girl is learning about perspective, and she thinks that he knows everything, and then she starts to tell that same information about another person. But because so much information was lost and she didn't understand everything, the next person will not understand it either, and it can actually be very, very damaging for this third person. But that doesn't mean that you couldn't really you couldn't help others. You just need to understand that it's very different. That teaching and helping are two different things. So, how you can change your way of thinking? I suggest that you try doing the opposite. You need to try out why something is done in a certain way, and I find it's easiest to try doing it wrong first and find out why couldn't I do it the other way around. Because we do some actions in a certain way just because we are used to do it that way. We usually don't want to change. We just want to do something that we are good at. And if you are a beginner, there is no guarantee that the way you do the drawings is the most efficient way, yet alone correct. So you kind of need to force your mind constantly so that you will try different things and think in different way. for example, in digital drawing, you are not limited to pen and eraser or black and white. So why not painting white on black? Actually, the process is actually the same, but it requires very different kind of way of thinking. So whether you are shading or illuminating the sphere, it's very different. And if you try that, you may actually come to understand why it works in this way. And the same goes with proportions or pretty much anything. But with proportions, for example, if you draw a character who has really big head, try doing the other way around. Draw a really small head, because the right size is, of course, somewhere in between. And then you start trying, okay, let's make a little smaller, a little bigger, and then you start to find out the right size for the head, for example. So, yes, this is pretty much it, but your goal as an artist is to manipulate sort of the viewer. Now, manipulating sounds rather negative, but you don't need to think it that way, because it's more about the artist need to guide the viewer so that they understand everything the artist wants them to see. So, at least my intention is that your eyes will be drawn on that black dot. Is it? Hands up. Yes. So your eyes are always drawn on that black dot, and that is just because how the contrast here works. The black dot is so different from everything else, so your eyes are naturally drawn into it. And well, this is very conceptual drawing. This is just about circles here, but you can actually apply this on about pretty much everything. For example, drawing the character in just a certain place and drawing a little less details on the background, so the character will stand out, and the eyes of the viewer will draw into that character, or so whatever you want it to be. And artists are really masters of this kind of leading the eye. So, it all comes to the fact what our brains or mind want to see. So you need to convince the viewer so that they will care whatever you are drawing. And you do this by knowing what our brain actually wants to see. So, people tend to like themes like Star Wars, My Little Ponies, Naruto, things like that. But that's just what you personally may like. That's not what your brain wants to see. Your brain doesn't know anything about Star Wars. Nothing. It just knows that something works and something doesn't. So you can actually draw pretty much anything, but if you do it in a certain way, the viewers will like it a lot. So, we can move on to the example here, which I drew. It's not that bad drawing, isn't it? It's about, it's a Toho character. I don't know if you know about Toho, but anyway. And she's running there. But does it feel like she was really running there? Honestly speaking, do you find this an interesting drawing? Hands up. Is it interesting? Yeah, it's not interesting, but it's not badly drawn in itself. So you kind of need to understand that quality, our technical correctness isn't enough to bring your drawings to life. So if I analyze this drawing a little here, you will see this pose is very unnatural. No one runs in this way. No one. And you know it. Your mind already knows. It knows how we run. And because it contradicts with your mind, it just doesn't like it. It's confusing. You can tell yourself that it's running, but it doesn't feel like it was running. So in reality, we seek immersion. So we want to believe what we see. And you do this by following concepts that kind of bring the message to the viewer in the most impactful way, as clearly as it possibly can, so that your mind have it easy to understand whatever it sees. So let's have another example. Now, how many of you think this second drawing is much better than the first, and so on? Right. But it's probably not the best drawing in the world, but it has the feeling of a running character, or a character who leaps, something. It's only a sketch, but it has just enough visual information so that you will understand what is actually going on there. And that's because our imagination is doing the job. We don't need to draw everything because our brain already knows a lot of things. And when you just give enough hints, it will do the rest. And you will save a lot of efforts. That's called creative laziness. You don't need to draw everything. And this is the key. This is the magic people fail to see most of the time. They don't know they are being manipulated. And so if someone sees this drawing on the right, okay, it's cool, yes. But when they see the drawing next to it, it's like a mind blow. Whoa, that's so great drawing. And even if it's actually rather not very well drawn, it's just a sketch here. And so to analyze this a little, this drawing here, I have drawn a little environment there, scenery. There's actually rather random lines over there. But if you know this character, and if you know that plant over there, weed, whatever it is, your mind will probably think something like a river. It has an impression of a river. And this character is leaping. Maybe it's leaping jumping on the stones. You actually see stones there. And if there is this kind of weed and stones there, there must be a river somewhere in there. So these random lines are actually a river. I think that's one of the most interesting things about how our brain works. It just finds a meaning for these lines. Oops, sorry. Oops. I don't know what happened. Sorry. So, the thing is that when you understand what our brain wants to see, you come to understand where you need to focus on, what kind of things you need to focus on in order to draw drawings like here. And when you do understand, you will start to improve much faster because you know where to put your efforts. You don't waste too much energy on things like anatomy at first because you know you won't be able to use that information in a long time. So you start from the basic things and move on from there. You never give up. You never stagnate. You will just keep moving on. And that's the point of the whole thing. And the rest, when you kind of understand the concepts, the rest is just about catching up with your understanding, with your physical skill. It's just about practice, practice, practice. You start to practice and keep drawing so that your physical skill of actual drawing will catch up your conceptual understanding. And I think that's all that I have to say about this topic. I could keep going on with these things forever, but I don't have the time, and I believe you don't have the time either. So I hope this helped you even a little to orientate your own mind so that you will be able to improve much faster, and it will become more easier for you. All right. I think that's it. Thank you very much. All right, I think we should have some time for questions if you have any. I will gladly answer if you have. Okay, it doesn't seem you have any. It's okay, because I will be at the Artist Alley later, and if you want, you can come there to watch as I draw with my Cintiq, and you can come to ask questions, or otherwise just look how I do things. And if any of you is actually considering buying a Cintiq, I can also show you a little how it works and what kind of device it is. So. And if you want to see more stuff from me, go to nsio.deviantart.com. You will see just about these things that I was telling you before. Thank you. Thank you very much.